Good evening. This is the Blue Seahorse Show. I'm Mike Siver, and I'm here with Paige Siver. If you're concerned about the name, she is my niece. And we've spent several weeks now speaking about children and the environment they grow up in, and we decided that we're going to talk about children or young people or young adults. Let's have them on the show. So this is where we're going to start that from now on. And several times in the future, there's going to be younger people on the show, and we can have some discussions about it. This week's topic is be a good winner, be a good loser. You should strive to be good at both winning and losing, or you will find you're not really good at either one of them. A good loser has personal integrity and ethics, for without them, he will also be a poor winner. Now, Paige is here to give the view of that from someone that is learning the stages of winning and losing. And I'm just not talking about a track runner or a football team or a tennis player. I'm talking about life in general as a good winner and a good loser. And maybe the words are too defined or too specific, but Paige, I'd like to know what your feelings are about those topics, about a person feeling a winner and feeling a loser.
Well, to feel a winner is to definitely, feel good about yourself. There's nothing wrong with being happy with your accomplishments. You have to have that sense of pride that keeps you going, because if you're not happy with that you've won, then it just won't let you keep winning, And winning in the sense of beating somebody else at something isn't something that we should all strive to do. It's winning in the sense of coming to your own predestined goal. So getting a good grade on a test, that's winning for a lot of people. Definitely for me, I know. And losing can be the same thing, not having somebody beat you at something, but not reaching the goal that you set out, or failing then to accept that you have lost. That's a failure to me.
Now, in your class settings and in your peer structure that you are involved with, do you guys have these conversations? Do you talk about what it likes to be not as good as the next guy, or I'm a winner, so I'm better than everybody else?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have those conversations?
Definitely. I'm on the forensics team, which is competitive speaking and acting. So there are winners and there are losers, and we do say, oh man, that one kid from that one school, he had this great piece, he's so good, and I hate him for it. I hate him so much, I can't believe it. And it's just, we do talk about it, and we also say, you know what, look at that person and see what they're doing to make them win, and strive to hit those accomplishments that they're doing. Watch what they do, and don't hate them because they're winning. Try to watch them to see what they're doing to win. And the same with losing. If somebody doesn't go to semis or finals, say, oh, well, they didn't have clear enough diction, or their posture was pretty bad. I know that I need to step up my diction and my posture so that I don't lose, and I do set the goals that I accomplish. Okay,
and you said earlier that one person that you were with said this other person was so good and had a good presentation, and that person hated that person. I'm presuming it wasn't a real hate.
No.
It was just, they're so good, how do I do that?
Exactly.
And I wonder if that's too about expression.
It totally could be. I feel like a lot of it's jealousy. Like, man, I can't believe that they're so good, and, I worked this hard, and I know that I worked harder even though you don't know that. So it's just definitely the trying to understand where you're coming from with that hatred. So to know that somebody is better than you, it's hard to accept it. So to say that you hate them is a lot easier than saying, I hate myself because I didn't do it this way that I wanted to.
And do you think that's something that we should be taught earlier in age?
Oh, definitely.
That rather than not liking you because you're better than me, is what can I do to be as good as you?
Yep. I definitely think that should be taught, and that the you participated, so here, gold star, that should not be taught, because it just teaches kids that, all I have to do is try to feel like I've accomplished something. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, you do have to try harder so that you reach, what you've set out for. So that's definitely something that kids need to be taught earlier on, and it's something that they're not taught.
And you mentioned there earlier about all I have to do is try. There's one article I've written in one of my books about try, and if you check dictionaries, about half of them in the U.S., part of the definition will say try alludes to failure.
Yep.
And that's another whole show on talking about try. We've done that before. But let me read just a little bit more out of here, and then we can have some more of your feelings on what I've written here, because I wrote this as an adult, and this may not be appropriate or applicable today.
Right.
I want to think it is, but it might not be. Everyone would like to be a winner, and most of us work on being a winner most of the time. Winners makes us feel good and also puts us at the center of attention. Mm-hmm. Those things improve our self-esteem and our self-confidence. Being a winner also encourages us to try more challenging goals throughout our life. Does that fall in line with anything that you younger people are thinking today?
Oh, definitely. The winning makes us want to try harder. It's for football, for soccer. I won this one game against this team that's really kicking our butts last year, but now we want to beat our rivals, our top dog rivals. We want to do this. And I know for forensics, it's I made semis last week, and now this week I got to make finals. It's just each accomplishment pushes you farther. It makes you want to try harder to see how far you can go.
But what about, you're in public speaking. You're in a group that does speaking and acting, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that takes a certain personality to be able to stand up there, put yourself out there.
Definitely.
And hope that you can convince people that you're right,
yep,
winning, or that you do what you want to do. But what about all the younger people? Because public speaking is a profession. Mm-hmm. It's a skill.
Yep.
And it doesn't come to a lot of people very easily.
No.
So the other members of your class, your other classmates who don't do that, you guys ever try and encourage them to come into it, or just assign class and you can't do that? Once you get your classes assigned, you're stuck?
Well, definitely we do try to do that, because it's every year we do it, and in the English classes there is some predetermined public speaking. So if somebody goes up to the podium and they're really good and they're very fluent and they always keep eye contact with a lot of people and they know what they say and they're out to go say it, and afterwards, because there's always at least like one or two people from the forensics team in a class that does public speaking, and they'll go up to them and they'll be like, dude, that was awesome, we got to get you into forensics, at least come to one of the competitions, come look at this, and they can do it next year if they have room in their schedule. But there is always that, come join forensics, come do this thing, and that's a win for us too, because we get more team members and we get more wins for the team, because even though it's an individual competition and sport, I guess, it's very team integrated too. So we had 5 people go to semis, that's awesome. We had 10 people, super cool. It's, if one person wins, the whole team wins.
What about the ones who have a passion for something but don't know how to express it? Now, they're not in your class or in your particular student topic, but how do they get recognized? How does your rest of your peer group handle those people who have a feeling about something you may not agree with, but they're not in your class to debate that and talk about that?
Right. I feel like that can be very difficult for them, because if they've got that feeling or that opinion, it's likely they've discussed it with their friends and some classmates, but it's very hard to express that in high school, because you always feel like you're going to be judged and ridiculed for something, if it may even be a slightly different opinion from somebody else's. So to express themselves, a lot of teenagers do go online and they go to forums where people talk about the same things, and that could totally be a win for them, because if even one person hears them and understands them, that's very validating.
Do you think using social media as an outlet to express your opinion is sort of anonymous, that you're not putting yourself out there?
Yeah.
You are to your selected group, because I'm going to talk to just the people that I want to hear me. Mm-hmm. Rather than like you're on stage, you may not know half the people out there, and you've got to still want them to be on your side.
Exactly, and that's where it's different too, because on stage you've rehearsed for months. I know to say this to get the emotional vote for me, and I know to do this and this and this, and you've rehearsed and practiced. But with yourself online and with that an anonymous factor, then it's more personal, I would say, because you do have to sort of let yourself out there to say why you feel that way. And even though it is anonymous, there is that opinion that you're putting out there, and it's very difficult sometimes.
I sometimes think that the social media, the people that speak on social media, and I use social media a lot myself, that it's like a clique in high school, or a clique in college, or a clique in the community, because you're only going to talk to the people that are going to listen to you. And a lot of times you're only going to talk to people who agree with you. That's why peers tell peers pretty much what they want to hear, because peers don't hold peers accountable very often. Now, you may in your group, because you're public speaking into a class, you're going to get critiqued on your presentation,
Yep.
on your ability to enunciate, to speak, to posture, all the stuff that goes with public speaking. And the class is there to critique you. One of the most beneficial exercises that I went through was when I was asked to run a group of professional peers. We all were together, and I was videotaped the whole time. And then after the group was over, you go back into a room and they play the videotape back, and they ask you, why did you do that?
Right.
Why did you do that? Why did you do that? You don't remember doing it. And that's a really powerful tool to teach you that you thought you did a good job.
Right.
You look at yourself on the camera afterwards and you say, wow, I was a real loser. And how did I get away with it? And that generates you to take a step up and become a little better professional.
Yeah.
Let me read another section out of here. This is fine, but how do you handle losing now and then? A lot of people take losing as failure, and by seeing themselves as a failure, they become depressed, and they start to lose their self-esteem and their self-confidence that they may have gained earlier. Now, how does your peer group deal with that?
Well, we all deal with it differently, but the way our coach tries to tell us, is look at how far you've come. You might not have made it to finals, but you made it to semis, and that's really amazing. And to see that and just to reflect on that, like, look at how far you've come, I think that's definitely something that everybody should recognize and try to look back on. So failing is hard, and losing is definitely a hit to the self-esteem, but what you do have to realize is you've done so much to get to this point, you can only go up now. So while it does hurt, it can also be a great motivator.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Losing has a place in our society. Losing has a place for us. But I think being able to cope with losing is a lost skill.
Yep.
We hear so many people on, the violence on the streets, the violence with kids. What do they think of themselves as losers? How do I deal with that? And how do I make myself equal? Well, back in the cowboy days, the equalizer for everybody was a gun.
Right.
It still is today.
Yeah.
It's the equalizer. I don't have to like you. You can't make me mad. You cannot upset me, because if you do, I'll kill you first. And that's what's happening. Do you guys have those discussions in your classes, in your peer group?
Not on that level, I don't think. Gosh, I don't know. We don't really talk about guns in my peer group, but it is kind of interesting to see, the equalizer. Like, I think the equalizer for us is emotions, like definitely hatred. I hate that guy. I'm not going to acknowledge that person. I'm not going to acknowledge that he did better than me because I feel awful. Like, I don't know. I've never really thought about that.
Well, I didn't want to say the topic would be about guns, but I'm just talking about losing and finding an equalizing force. When I grew up, it was fighting. If I wanted to be an equalizer with you, if I didn't like you, we got into a toe-to-toe fight. Today, it's a gun. So I don't mean to say that you should talk about guns.
Right.
Because that's talked about enough. But in the losing section of it and the self-esteem and the pride, do you recognize people who are going through something? And maybe it's the family. If the mother and father divorce in the middle of their sophomore year, their 10th year of high school or 9th year of high school, do they perceive their family as a failure? And how does that impact their schoolwork? How does that impact their social agenda? Now having come from their friends with mothers and fathers, and now all of a sudden you don't have that, your family's
Right.
divorced, and how does that impact the kids today and how they deal with that on an emotional level?
Well, that can be very hard. I have my two closest friends, their parents are both divorced. And it is very difficult because even though they split when the children were young, it's very hard on the kids because they see the parents and like maybe they like that one parent more than the other parent, and maybe this one parent is nicer than the other one and they can talk to them about anything. And so to have that and then to be flopping between those houses, it's very stressful because one week you feel really good. You got that one really cool parent, you feel really supported and really, just in a good place. And then the next week you've got that other parent and it's just, they cannot be in that household. And I know it's been very hard for both of my friends who eventually have to move because of this. And now, because of the split, definitely, and the parents not being together and in other places in the state, they're having to move and switch schools. And that's hard on them, and it's going to be hard on me, and it's hard on the friend group and self-esteem, definitely.
And I don't know, as parents, whether we take all that into consideration. I know we all feel that, because I've been through a divorce, and I know how my children reacted. They had fortitude enough to come and tell me how they felt,
Right.
which was important to me. But at the same time, I thought at the time that my doing what I was doing would be better for them. And in all actuality, it was more my own being self-centered and trying to get peace within myself, using them as an excuse to do what I was doing. And I wonder how many parents do that and how that can come across with children's schoolwork, your friends' schoolwork. They're wanting to get involved with a particular sport or activity or after-school activity, going to one parent's house who lives closer to the school. They can do an activity, then the next week they have to go to the other parent's house,
Right.
which is too far away, so they can't do the activity. You said stressful. I think that's an understatement.
Yeah.
I think it's a chronic demoralizer in the achievement that child is allowed to get. And I don't think we as adults look at that enough and pay enough attention or ask enough questions of your age group or the group younger than you. Let me read another section out of the book, and it says, with a positive attitude, losing away is to teach us how to lose with dignity. Losing teaches us what we are doing did not work. But if we continue to be motivated and keep working on whatever it was that caused us to fail, we will become successful. Is that something that you mentioned earlier, that losing should be a motivator?
Oh, yeah.
I understand you understand that.
Right.
Okay? And I know your dad really well, so I know where that comes from.
Yep.
But what about your peers? What about some of your friends that don't have that, and you see them get a bad grade or not do a good presentation, and they walk around with their head down for the whole day after that?
I definitely have a few friends like that, and one of my friends, they fail at something and they're just done. It's like, no, obviously I can't do it, so I am done. I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to ask for help. It's over. And I have another friend who will try to do things better, even if it's the wrong way to do it. But I have this one great friend, and she's so cool, and she always, she sees that failure, and she's like, well, what else can I build from this? I broke this thing, but can I fix something new from it? And I think that's a really neat way to look at things. So I feel like a lot of that is the maturity level, because she's very strong and she knows what she wants and she understands how to get it. and that's very mature of her and very rational as well. So to be able to build from a loss probably stems from maturity and how somebody knows how to react to that.
Do you think more than just maturity, it's their upbringing from children, from 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, what they're taught on not being successful, from eating with a spoon the first time, or going to the bathroom by themselves for the first time, or flushing the toilet the first time? Some kids make a mess of that.
Yeah.
And how are they talked to when that happens? You mentioned your friend who doesn't do well at one particular thing, says, I'm done with that, that's it, it's over, I'm never going to do it again. Do you guys talk to her after that and say, how about did you ever look at it from this point of view? Did you ever look at it from that point of view? Yeah,
I mean, at the very beginning when I started to be friends with that person, I was very, let's try this thing and let's do that thing, and maybe if you did it this way it would work. And I still feel like sometimes, most of the time, we are still saying those things, but it just gets harder because they're so down on themselves that even though you really want to help and you really want to bring them back up, they just bring you down too. And that's something that was probably taught from childhood, but it was also probably, like self-absorbed and just self-learned, because the person I'm talking about didn't really get much attention as a child, so I feel like not getting encouragement as well as a poor lesson in childhood did not help their situation.
I'll tell you a little trick on how to try maybe help them get out of that dump, is if you ask them to come and help you motivate somebody else. Now they've got to address their fears and their issues, because how can they be depressed and be negative trying to motivate somebody?
Right.
That's a little thing we do sometimes, is somebody who's dealing with an issue, if they can help somebody else out of the same issue, they don't realize that they're actually getting out of that issue themselves.
Right.
And it's a good little way to.
That's really neat. Yeah.
Okay. So keep that in mind for the future.
Okay.
So us old people got some ideas yet. We're not totally done. So let me read the last part of this here. By becoming a good loser with a positive attitude, it will also make you a good winner in the future. That's the biggest part of young people's, as you mentioned earlier, you have one friend who doesn't deal with losing very well, or not being successful very well. I find such a powerful concept of what they're going to become as mature adults, from keeping relationships together. Well, I can't keep it together, so I'm done with it. I can't keep my marriage together, so I'm done with it. I can't quit smoking, so I'm done with it. I'm going to keep smoking.
Right.
They have a defeatist attitude. And I firmly believe that if we can stop that defeatist attitude at the earliest possible age, that if we only reach one person, that person may reach another person.
Yeah.
I'd like to sit here and do this show and change all the world, but it's going to happen one show at a time, or one person at a time. And I really hope that in the future we have more people like you come on board, or for you to come back. And I hope the audience watching this show will write in with questions, or maybe one of them feels they want to come and talk about this topic.
Yeah.
I'd love to invite them to come on board and talk about this topic. It reaches more people, and we're going to have more guests on board that are going to cover a lot of topics, but my whole goal is to have adults aware of how they're bringing up their children.
Definitely.
And you see that, and I really am interested when you come back on the show, is how you feel about that as a student, a high school student. And I'm hoping that when you'll take some stuff back with you, and there's more ways to do it than just you becoming a good speaker. And I guess my question would be, what's motivating you to become a good speaker? What are your goals? What are your ambitions for the future? Because you're not doing this just to look good.
Right.
There's more to it than that.
It's definitely to learn stuff, because by talking to you, I have learned a lot. It's very interesting, and to be a good speaker, I love public speaking, and this is going to be very helpful for me in forensics. And it's great. I love, and I want to help people, because I want to go to college to be a psychologist and help teens, and talk to them and just figure out what's happening and try to help them through it. I want to help people. So if I can help people through this show like you've been doing, that's all that matters.
Well, that's what we're looking forward to carry on and bring more people on here. I'm even hoping in the future to bring some younger people on board, that we can come in and talk about their feelings and their emotions. We're also starting a project in Kalamazoo called Project Joy, that we're going to try and join up young people, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, with senior citizens for 1 year. It's going to be a pilot program. We're still getting the funding together and get that off the ground. But I think that's going to be a huge program.
Oh, yeah.
For an awareness of the show, like we did last week. The show was about young versus old. And, when you grow up, you have the same needs as a baby and as a child as adults do when they become seniors.
Yeah.
The exact same needs. But the children get all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
The adults, the seniors don't get any.
Yeah.
Or very little. Unless they're really rich and can afford to pay for a lot of stuff. So these are the kind of gaps I'm trying to bridge and trying to get adults to look at. And you brought up a couple of very good topics about your one friend of yours who doesn't deal with disappointment very well. There's ways to get around that, as we talked about. Your friends who are from divorced families, moving and struggling back and forth. Whether the parents want to think so or not, that's going to impact the future of those children. And it impacts them more than they think. And why do they have to go with one parent or another parent? That's the rights between parental responsibility to divide the relationship up between the parents, if they want to take the time to do that. And most people do today. But how difficult is that on the parents? And how difficult is that then reflect on the children?
Yeah.
And you get so many parents who are in that situation. One parent will burn the other parent all the time, trying to divide the children.
Right.
Trying to get the children to like one parent more than the other parent. But that usually backfires when the kid's old enough to realize all they were being told was not true.
Right.
And those are the things you're going to run across growing up. And in the school, you're involved with them right now. You may not even know it. I'm hoping that these kind of shows and you will now start being more observant of things. Not that you're going to go out there and save every kid, because you're not.
Right.
But at least now you have hopefully an awareness to look and say, well, what can I do? Should I do anything, but what can I do?
Yeah.
I know there are peer counselors. I know there are school social workers that's their job in school. Mm-hmm. But nobody gets to a peer quicker than a peer.
Yeah.
Nobody can reach a peer quicker than a peer can reach them.
Yep.
They're the first ones on the scene. They're always there. They see them going on. They see their posture, their body language. They see their vocabulary, their eye contact or lack of.
Yeah.
They see it, especially now at your age and your grade, the boy-girl relationships. Mm-hmm. That can be disastrous.
Oh, yeah.
So,
definitely.
Well, unless you got a final closing comment that you want to partake, we're about ready to wind this show up.
Okay.
I really want to appreciate your taking the time to come on the show. And do you have anything you want to say before we go?
Just that don't let your failures define you. Learn from it and grow from it and just keep going. Try to get those winnings from those losses.
Well, thank you very much, Paige, and I'm glad to have you on the show. And this is Mike Siver from Blue Seahorse. We're going to wind this show up for this evening and look forward to seeing you all next week.